Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Today is a different kind of video. It is actually one by request, and that is from my girl Heather over at the Needy Homesteader. Coming up here next month in February is going to be Fermented February. It's a big collaboration. I'm working on putting it together. This is not an announcement video for said video, but I was talking to her about the collaboration, and she really wants to get started with fermentation, but she hasn't had a whole lot of luck with it. And she was curious about some of the tools that I would recommend for people wanting to get started. They're not afraid to invest, a little bit of money into it to ensure a much higher likelihood of success. So that's what this video is. I'm going to share with you my favorite fermenting tools that I think are not necessary in any way, shape, or form. Let me throw that out there. When I first got started with fermenting, I spent years using just a boiled rock and a glass jar. That's really all you need. But some people want to have a higher likelihood of success, and I'm going to help you with that today. So this video goes out to Heather, but it is for everybody. I wanted to get this video out in time, so if anybody was interested in ordering these things to follow along with Fermented February, there would be plenty of time for you to be able to click on these links, explore, see what works right for you, and order it to have it delivered in time to begin by February 1st. There's a variety of different options of what you can order, but all of them have the same goal in mind, and that is to keep any air or mold from getting into the jar while allowing any of the gases created within the fermenting jar to escape. That's what every single one of these do. So let's get started, shall we? This first lid I've used twice. Had good luck with it, no issues whatsoever. The way this lid works is you just push it inside of a jar and you just push it on. This lid will create a seal that will keep any kind of mold or air from going inside. But this little X in the lid, can you see the X? You can see the X. When the pressure builds inside of the jar, the X kind of opens a little bit and allows the pressure from inside, the gases that are in the jar, to be relieved and go out through that spout. And then once that pressure is relieved, it pulls it back down to its normal resting levels, and it won't allow anything in or out until the pressure inside builds up enough again. So this one works great. Unfortunately, this one does not. I do have to say, I've only tried this one single time, but I do not recommend it. And I think it's probably in the design where it is supposed to go over the lip here. It fits over it instead of inside of it. And I'm guessing that somehow that just doesn't create a tight enough seal, and everything in my jar got like apocalyptically moldy very quickly. 0 out of 10 stars. Do not recommend this lid. That's the only one that I do not recommend. I've not had any poor luck with anything else. Some things work better than others. Some work every time. And some are just so practical that even if there's a tiny bit of failure every once in a while, it still makes it worth it. And that's been my experience. Next up on the list are these airlock lids. They are both almost completely identical. One has a plastic lid and one has a stainless steel lid. They both have silicone seals on the inside to make sure you have a nice tight seal so that the only air going in and out of your jar is through this little pipe. Sorry for the noise. It's kind of probably pretty loud on your end. I'm sorry. So the way it works is you have this pipe that goes from inside of the jar. It has a little blocker on the end, so most larger particles will not be able to make it through and up through this pipe that ends right here. I hope you can see that okay. See, it goes all the way to the end, and you can kind of see that little crisscross at the end. That's what stops things from coming up through the pipe, most things, and it'll come all the way up to here. So we're going to fill the outside of this rim here with water to about here, and then this cup with those little holes on it will rest right on top. And to keep it from floating right outside of the jar, it has this lid that has tiny itty bitty holes all around the edge here that will allow any air to get out and also keep this thing from floating right outside the jar. This little thing inside here is going to begin to float. Not as it's actually down at the bottom floating up to here, but my fingers aren't that teeny tiny. So it's just as the pressure inside starts to build, it's going to push this cup up until the CO2 trying to escape will bubble right out of the jar, and then it'll just sink right back down to the bottom until the pressure builds again. So this one works very simply, very easy, very inexpensive. If you buy just the airlock by itself, it's incredibly inexpensive, but that involves drilling holes in things and finding gaskets. I would much rather just get the kit like this, and it was pretty inexpensive. I'm not sure the exact price, but all of these things, the ones that I purchased, as long as they're still available on Amazon, I will link them down below for you. So you don't even have to think about it. So I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about with my bubbly water, because it's what I have. So all you do is you just take this, fill up the outside, careful not to get inside of the tube there. Just fill it up, about that. Put your cap on, because you know you're incredibly accident prone. And there's a computer there. So then you just put the little, it would be a lot easier for you to see if that was clear water, wouldn't it? I tried, you guys, okay? In my travels to go and receive some water, I realized I was doing it the hard way. Just leave the dome inside of there and then fill it up with water. I don't know what I was thinking. And just make sure you go like about halfway up, because you do want it to make sure to go above the little holes in here. The water inside of here, in combination with the cup, will keep any air from going in and out through here, keeping the inside of the jar free from contamination, from mold, and keep the air out, because our ferments here really like to have an air-free environment. Next up, you have this one that is a bit of a combo. This is by Ball. It works pretty dang well. It's the same principle as all of them. It has this lid that has this valve on the back here. These are just holes, and it has a silicone flap, and when that pressure builds up, it allows this flap to flap and lets the air out. But when there's not enough pressure, it's hold down, just like all the other ones. It's just, it lets pressure out but doesn't let air in. And then it works with this spring that I have found works phenomenally well with things like sauerkraut, things that you really want to things that you can apply pressure to hold it underneath the brine without causing damage. It doesn't work so well with a lot of other ferments like pickles, because if you're putting constant pressure on it like this, you can start to break them down. That's been my experience. Fantastic for krauts and things like that. Not so much for other ferments, but the two do go hand in hand. This next one is also a duo, and it comes with this weird backwards pump. It's a sucker. It doesn't pump air, it sucks air. And you put it on top of this lid that is a one-way valve with a silicone ring as well. This one's kind of handy because it also comes with a calendar on it, and you can adjust these little dials to whatever you want it to say, whether that is when you put the ferment up or when you want to check on it, whatever it may be. You're gonna fill it up, put your lid on there, tighten it down, and then ain't nothing getting in that jar. What you're gonna do once you get the lid on there, you're gonna suck out all the initial air that's in there. The bacteria that we try to ferment doesn't like the oxygen. So if you suck all the oxygen out of the jar, there's a less chance that funky bacteria is going to be able to take over. That didn't stay on there. But you get my point. It'll tell you when it's done pumping. It'll get more difficult to pump, but I mean, it's going to take us a minute with this whole jar. And then this one-way valve on here will also, hear that pressure? This one-way valve will allow any pressure buildup to release, but also stopping everything else from getting into the jar. This last one is my favorite gadget. I ferment with this thing probably half of the time, and that is a Mason Tops kit. It comes with the whole kit and caboodle. They have a pickle packer, pickle pucks, and pickle pipes. So you have this you're going to need if you're going to want to do any, you don't need, but this one is very helpful if you make any kind of krauts. Helps you pack in the it helps you pack in the vegetables into the jar. These weights, out of every tool that I have, these weights, not these ones specifically, but glass weights that fit inside of a mason jar are the most helpful tool I've ever purchased. They act as a cover, which will help in itself to hold the vegetables down, as well as working as a weight pressure to hold things from floating out of your jar. So it's dual purpose. It's really easy to get clean. They're very durable. As you can see, you can hold them, you can pick them up. They're fantastic. Mason Tops makes one. I have another brand as well that I purchased and I like it also. And I don't think it came inside of a kit. But I will link another one, an alternative for you in case you don't want to get the whole kit. It comes with 4 of those weights and 4 of these pickle pipes. So this one works in combination with your regular canning ring. You're going to put this on top of your ferment and just tighten it on there a little snugger than you would a canning lid. You want to put it on there tightly enough so that you can form the seal, but you don't want to put it on there too tightly because you can crinkle the silicone here and that way it won't have an actual seal. And this works the same as all the other ones here. It's got this little crisscross on top that when the pressure starts to build inside, it will release, and when the pressure is relieved, it will close back again. Like I said, they're all very similar principles. They all come at it from a little bit of a different angle. They're made out of different products. They're different companies. It's really all it comes down to is preference. I really like the Mason Tops kit. As you can see, I have an entire one just sitting here that I've not opened yet, and I have probably about 4 of these kits in my regular fermentation cycling. But I also know that they are much more expensive than a lot of the competitors. So I'll be linking the Mason Tops kit, and I will pour through some of the reviews on a couple of the other ones to find one that I think is the best, but go into it knowing I don't have personal experience with it. I'll just try and find the one that has the best reviews. Last up is one that I use. Remember how I said that I use the Mason Tops for about half of my ferments? These jars are about the other half of my ferments. I use these other ones too, but these things are so easy, so simple, and I have literally actually never had a failed fermenting in these jars. Some people say that they're not strong enough to hold up and they're not made for fermentation, and BS. If you get the good quality ones. I will only ferment in things like Fido. I've got Kilner. I've got Mason Tops makes a good one also. There's one that says storage only, and you won't want to use those ones, but they do make ones that are just as quality as these ones. And the difference, a Bromoli. That was the other one I was thinking of. So I'll link a few different sizes, a few different brands down below that you can choose from, but you can find these just at Ross. Like, you don't have to order these things online. They're probably less expensive if you can find them in a regular department store because you're not paying shipping. But if you don't want to do that, I will link these down below for you. And you just want to make sure, don't go to the craft store and pick out one of those like fancy cutesy things, because those will not hold the pressure that you need to hold with these jars. These work the same, have the same principle as the other ones. They're just so much simpler. They have this little flip lid here, a silicone ring, and you put it on here and it has sort of a spring action to it, and it will just close, right? And that spring holds a tremendous amount of pressure, which if you want to carbonate whatever's in here, you generally can, but if the pressure builds up too much, it will allow some of the pressure to escape and be relieved. But no, when you open these jars, you will still get the hissing sound. You will still get the burping relief from it, but you just don't have to have the daily devotion that you would a mason jar lid. Just about to edit this video, and I realized I did not mention 2 of the most important points about fermenting with these jars. The first awesome part about it is that it is multi-purpose. Everything else kind of is singular in its purpose. You can't really use it for anything else, so if you have a limited space, these things are fantastic because you don't have to have something that only has one purpose. The next thing that I think is one of the reasons I like this the most is that it has a see-through lid. So when you're fermenting, you can just look in there and be like, do I got any little floaters going on there? Do I see any mold starting to form? Which never happens. But you can still look and be assured with it. Whereas most of the, every one of the other lids, you do have to open it to check on it. These are fantastic because you don't have to pop the top and risk any kind of contamination. You can just leave it shut until you think you might see something that could possibly be wrong with it, or until you're ready to start checking on it. Tasting it, I mean. Anyways. Okay, bye. The other main thing that you really need, if you're going to be fermenting with fermenting apple cider, you're going to want to get just a big, like a gallon jar. I'll link a good gallon jar down below for you. and a nice cloth cover, like literally anything. You can see right there, that's my kombucha. I just put a standard, I got it at Walmart. It's just like the hand cloths, like the dish towels. That's all I put on them with a rubber band. That is all you need for the beginning stages. And then when you filter it out, you're just going to filter it out and put it back in another jar and put a lid on it. One thing that helps with apple cider is to make sure to keep the apples underneath the brine or to stir them often. If you don't have the time to stir them often, keep everything underneath the brine. I'll link a weight down below that I've had my eye on. I haven't ordered it yet, so I can't personally vouch for it. But it fits inside of like these style jars, and I will find one that will fit inside of a gallon size jar also, to help hold everything under the brine to give you a better chance of success. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, everything is going to be linked down below for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you have any questions or you need any recommendations for anything else I did not talk about today, feel free to ask down below. This is not a Fermented February announcement video. That one's going to be coming later on. I just want to make sure I give everybody the opportunity to get as prepared as they wish. So if you guys enjoyed this video, you love fermentation, gut healing, and homesteading, make sure you click this button here. This is the subscribe button. This is what tells YouTube you want to come back here. Up here is a video that Mr. Google Pants thinks you're going to enjoy. Over here is one of my Fermented February videos from last year. And then up here is the 2022 Fermented February playlist. Check it out for some inspiration before we get going. Peace out, sauerkraut.